Did you follow all of my previous instructions? Thank you. State may call the next witness.
State calls Keandra Harrison.
Keandra Harrison.
Please raise your right hand, face the clerk.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, ma'am.
Much respect.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Keandra Rison.
And Ms. Harrison, what city do you currently reside?
Tallahassee, Florida.
And what was your previous occupation?
Urban and regional planner.
What education prepared you for that occupation?
I have an undergraduate degree in political science with a concentration in economics. And I have 2 graduate degrees from Florida State, one in urban and regional planning and one in public administration and policy.
I was going to say, try to speak up into the microphone and talk a little bit slower, okay?
Take your time.
Okay. I said that, I have 2 master's degrees from Florida State. One's in urban and regional planning and one's in public administration and policy.
Okay. Now, where were you employed back in November of 2009?
Reynolds Smith and Hills.
And when did you start your employment with Reynolds Smith and Hills?
October of 07.
So as of November of 2009, you've been employed there just over 2 years. Is that fair?
Yes.
When did you leave your employment with Reynolds Smith and Hills?
June of 2012.
Just over a year ago,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
What was your job title when you were with Reynolds Smith and Hills?
Transportation planner.
And what did you do as a transportation planner?
Community development, community involvement, economic development, zoning, land use, design, that type of work.
What do you mean by community development? I don't understand what that is.
If you want to, if there are changes that are going to be made, like when the flyover was going to be put at State Road 50, the community at the intersection of State Road 50 and 436, we did a community development plan. They did a 3-day charrette where you sit down with the community members and listen to what it is that they would like to see in their community as it grows forward.
Okay. Did you go to those meetings? Is that
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Sort of a liaison with the community.
Yes.
Ms. Harrison, I'd like to direct your attention now to Friday, November 6th of 2009, around 11:30 in the morning. Do you remember that day?
Yes, sir.
And were you working at the RS&H offices at the Gateway Center that morning around 11:30?
Yes.
Now, back then, what were your normal work hours?
I worked a 4-9-4, which you work 9 hours Monday through Thursday and 4 hours on Friday.
Okay, so at 11:30, were you preparing to go home?
I was downloading files to take home for the weekend, just to be prepared for Monday.
And where were you downloading these files?
Physically. Physically, I was at my cubicle.
And where in relation to the reception area of RS&H was your cubicle?
Not too far, like around a corner and 2 cubes down.
Could you see the reception area from your cubicle if you stood up?
I could see the beginning of it, yes.
Okay. Is that where you were when you first noticed that there was a problem or something was wrong?
Yes.
Was anyone with you at that point?
No.
Would using a diagram of the RS&H offices help illustrate your testimony as to what you did and where you went after you noticed the problem?
Yes.
Your Honor, may the witness refer to State's Exhibit 2.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Harrison, there should be a laser pointer on the desk in front of you. You see it? Okay, you press the button. Don't point it at the judge.
Sorry,
there we
sir.
go. That's okay. I was just trying to give you a heads up. Okay, Ms. Harrison, over your left shoulder is State's Exhibit 2. Do you recognize the layout and building in front of you? Take your time to orient yourself. I can zoom in if you'd like.
Yes. These are the. Yes, I am oriented. This is where we come off the elevators on the 8th floor. And our office was directly in front.
And you have the pointer on the reception area now, correct?
Correct.
And if you go through the reception area and turn left, if you could show us on there where your cubicle was located. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you. Hold on, let me back out. Was it in the middle row of cubicles?
Yes.
And you're pointing to the third cubicle in on the middle row from reception, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that where you were sitting when you noticed there was a problem?
Yes.
What was it that got your attention initially?
Big bam.
How many bams did you hear?
That time one.
Did you initially recognize what that sound was?
No.
Had you ever heard it before?
No.
What did you think it was?
Objection.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor.
Sister A.
After you heard one bam, what did you do?
I stood up.
And when you stood up, which direction were you looking?
I came out this way.
You stepped out of your cubicle to the left? To your left. Is that right?
Would have been to my right.
Okay, so you were facing away from reception.
I stood up and moved this way toward the reception.
Okay. And as you moved towards reception, what did you see?
Ed.
Who's Ed?
My coworker Ed.
Do you know his full name?
No. Sereno. Ed Sereno.
Okay. And where was Ed?
He collided into me the minute I stood out from my cubicle, and his eyes were bright red, and he was petrified.
Which direction was Ed going?
He was going this way.
Away from reception towards the back of the building.
Yes.
And I'm just repeating that, Ms. Harrison, so that the record is clear, okay? I can see that the dot is on the screen. If I say something wrong, please correct me. Did you speak to Ed?
No.
Did he stop after he collided with you?
No. He just looked so scared.
Okay. What did you do after you collided with Mr. Severino?
I realized, okay, something's really bad, and it's really bad. And the shots, I knew at that point it was shots because I smelled gunpowder. And so I don't know how I was shot, but I ended up on my back.
Okay. And if you can show us where you were on your back.
I landed in Amy Bent's cubicle on my back.
Who was Amy Bent?
Amy Bent was our marketing person. She was out doing like a meet and greet that day.
Okay. Ms. Harrison, what I'm going to ask you to do is to turn the light off until I ask you. That way we know for sure, okay? So was Ms. Bent in the office that day?
No.
Was she in her cubicle?
No.
And you said you were on your back.
Yes.
What happened when you were on your back in Ms. Bent's cubicle? Did you know at that point if you had been shot?
Yes.
And what happened after you found yourself on your back in Ms. Bent's cubicle?
The shots kept coming.
And did you see this or hear it?
I felt it. Like the shot, like I felt the initial shot on my ankle, like that went in my ankle, and then I felt another shot that went in my chest, and the shots just kept coming.
Okay.
And
Hold on, slow down if you can, okay? And you can turn and face me for now. Where were you when you felt the second shot?
Laying in Amy Ben's cubicle.
Okay, so you were laying on the ground when you felt the second one hit you.
Yes.
What did you do after the second shot came?
I was like, that's it. I'm going to die.
And what did you do?
I closed my eyes. I said the 23rd Psalm. I got all the way through it.
Are you still hearing shots?
Yes. Yes.
Can you see anything at this point?
No.
There's tissues next to you. If you need a break, just let me know. Are you still staring at the ceiling, Miss Harrison?
No, my eyes are closed, and I am ready to be riddled with bullets.
And you're hearing gunshots.
And I'm hearing gunshots. And I get through the 23rd Psalm, and then I said the words, "You are my Father, you are my Father," and that's when I open my eyes and realize I'm still alive.
What did you do after you opened your eyes?
I heard a voice that told me that I was going to live, but that I had to hide because he was going to come back.
Could you hide in Amy Ben's cubicle?
No.
Where did you go?
I went to Renato's cubicle. I went to Renato's office.
Who was Renato?
He was an engineer who then had moved to our DeLand office.
Okay. Did you know his office was empty?
Yes.
Where, I'm going to ask you to turn again and use the map if you can. Where was Renato's cubicle? Or, excuse me, his office?
in here.
Okay, and you're pointing at the very corner office next to the conference room, correct?
Yes.
Now, you said a moment ago that you were shot in the foot, correct?
Yes.
How were you able to get from Miss Bent's cubicle to Renato Gonzalez's office?
I hobbled. I first tried to walk, and then my ankle wouldn't let me. And so I hobbled to get underneath the desk in his office.
Now, how many desks are in Renato Gonzalez's office?
2.
Which one did you get under?
The one that faced the wall.
All the way in the back wall.
All the way on the back wall.
Okay. Did you see anyone as you were moving towards Renato Gonzalez's office?
No!
Could you hear anything at that point?
Shots were still being fired.
At this point, did you know who was firing the shots?
No.
Where did you position yourself once you got to Renato Gonzalez's office?
Underneath the desk.
What did you do when you got there?
I just sat there. I just sat there.
Could you see out into the hallway from where you were?
Yeah, I could see out. I could see out.
What did you hear once you were under the desk?
I
multiple shots being fired.
Okay. Did you ever hear a break in the shots, or were they continuous?
There was a break. Eventually there was a break. And I just sat there.
Did you yell or scream or make
Oh
any noise?
no, I was quiet. I was completely quiet.
Could you tell which direction the shots were moving by the sound of them?
They were away from me. They were away from me.
Did you ever hear the shots moving towards you?
Not again. Not after I was shot. No.
Did you ever become aware of any movement in your direction once you were in Mr. Gonzalez's office?
Yes!
What made you aware of movement?
Ma'am, do you need a break?
Do you need a break, Miss Harrison?
Just a second.
That's right.
Okay, let's take a short recess. Remove the jury. Okay, you may be seated. may be seated. Let the record reflect that the defendant is present along with counsel for the defendant, Assistant State Attorney. Let's return the witness. Okay, let's return the jury. You may be seated. State recognizes the presence of the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
And does the defense. Okay, members of the jury, did you follow all of my previous instructions? Okay, Mr. Williams, you may continue, sir.
Ms. Harrison, when we stopped, I had asked you what you saw when you were under Renato Gonzalez's desk. Do you remember what you saw?
Yes. I saw brown shoes, jeans, and a gun.
Okay. Could you see, was the gun floating? Was it in a hand?
It was in a hand.
Could you see anything above the hand?
No.
Right. And where were the shoes located?
At the entrance of the doorway.
Were the lights in the office on or off?
Off.
Did the shoes ever enter into the office?
They turned directly toward it, piercing in.
Okay, so the shoes walked into the interior of the office?
Yes.
How far?
Not very.
And did they ever enter any further than that?
No.
And how long did they stay stationary there, approximately?
In real time? $60 seconds.
Okay. What happened? Did the shoes eventually move?
Yes.
The person who the shoes belonged to walked away.
Yes.
Did you hear any more firing after that?
No.
Did you hear anything after that?
No.
What was the next thing you saw or heard after the shoes walked away?
People coming out from where they were hiding.
Who did you first have contact with?
Nicole.
Nicole who? Can you describe her?
Long, dark hair, thin,
White, black, or Hispanic?
white,
Okay. Where did you see Nicole? Where were you when you saw her?
in Renato's office. She came there and sat next to me.
Were you still under the desk?
At this point, I come out of the desk, because I had gotten up and gotten my cell phone from my cubicle. And I returned to Renato's office, and she came and sat next to me.
Okay, so after the person walked away, you went to your cubicle, is that right?
Yes,
And you retrieved your cell phone.
yes.
and then you returned to Mr. Gonzalez's office.
Yes.
And that's when you saw Nicole.
Yes.
All right. Did you make any phone calls?
Yes.
Who did you call?
First, I called 911. But that wasn't helpful at that moment. So I then tried to call my family.
You did try to call your family?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get in touch with them?
Yes.
All right. Do you know what Nicole was doing while you were doing this?
She was on the phone too. We were both sitting out on our cell phones.
Could you hear anything else from outside the office?
More people were coming. And then we moved. Like, we moved from Renato's office, and then there was a consensus to go in the closet.
Okay, so who is we? You said we moved.
Natalie Rodriguez, Kim Flynn, Nicole, Ken came in the office, came in the closet.
Who's
As
Ken?
well. Ken,
What did he do with the office?
he was our IT guy.
Okay. Anybody else with you at that point?
No.
Now, you said you went to a closet. Is that
Yes.
right?
Right.
Where was the closet located in relation to Renato Gonzalez's office?
Across from it.
Directly across?
Yes.
Okay. When you got to the closet, what did you do?
I was still trying to call my brother and my sister-in-law because I didn't want my mom to see this on the news. So I was trying to call my brother, and I eventually did get a hold of him.
And did you speak with him from the closet?
Yes.
And what else was going on inside the closet around you without saying what people were saying?
They were trying to help me and figure out where my wounds were because I was telling them that I was shot in the chest. I was shot in my left breast. And so they were trying to figure out what to do about that. I was bleeding from my ankle, but the impact in my breast was, they were trying to figure out to make sure I wasn't going to bleed out or if I was going to have any other, what they could do to help me.
They were trying to tend to your wounds as best as possible?
Yeah.
Okay. And were you in the closet when law enforcement eventually arrived?
Yes.
Did you ever move from the closet once you got there until law enforcement arrived?
Say that again, please.
Sure. Until law enforcement got there, did you ever move out of that closet? Or did
No.
you stay there the whole time until they arrived?
No. Everyone who could physically leave, they left. Like when law enforcement came, they left. I was still laying there waiting. Even though law enforcement came, they were sweeping the building.
Okay. But you stayed because you were injured.
I was stayed because I was injured.
Were you eventually transported downstairs?
When the firemen came, which was later, that's when I got transported downstairs.
And were you taken to receive medical treatment?
Yes.
Do you know if the projectile or the bullet in your ankle, did it remain or did it go through?
It went in my ankle, up my leg, out of my calf muscle.
Okay. What about the one to your breast?
Breast went, it got lodged in my left breast tissue, and I had it removed in 2011.
Now, may I approach the witness who has been previously marked as State's Exhibits E and F?
You may.
series of photographs. You don't need to turn. You can look right there.
Okay.
Look at them individually, and after you finish looking at them, let me know. Okay. Do you recognize the photographs in State's Exhibit E?
Yes.
And are they a fair? What are they photographs of?
My shoes, my blood
And
in Amy Ben's cubicle.
are they fair and accurate depiction of Amy Ben's cubicle after you had been there on November 6th?
Yes.
Please look at State's Exhibit F and do the same thing. At this time, the state will be given evidence as the next number exhibit.
What says the defense?
No objection.
They will be received in evidence as states numbered.
States number 5.
Do you recognize those photographs, Ms. Harrison, in State's F?
Yes, I do.
And are they photographs of Renato Gonzalez's office as it was on November 6th of 2009?
Yes.
And are they fair and accurate depictions of that office?
Yes.
At this time, the state would submit States F and State 6.
What says the defense?
No objection.
They will be received in evidence as states numbered.
6.
Permission to publish States 5?
You may.
I'm just going to briefly look here.
Okay.
Briefly show each photograph. You've already described them, okay? Thank you, Your Honor. States E5. E4, and you previously described shoes, not to look, you previously described shoes, is that right?
Yes.
The shoes you saw were yours?
Those are my shoes.
Published in States E3. Published in States E2. Finally, States E5 to E1. And permission to publish State 6.
You may publish.
F8 of State 6. F7 of State 6.
cross-examination?
No cross.
Ms. Harrison, be excused.
She excused and released by the state, yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Harrison, you may be excused, ma'am. Okay, state may call in the next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Elizabeth Bartell.
Elizabeth Bartell.
Please raise your right hand. Face the clock.
Solemnly swear the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name for record purposes?
Elizabeth Mary Bartell, Bartell.
And Ms. Bartell, in which city do you currently reside?
I live in Orlando, Florida.
How long have you lived in the city of Orlando?
Just over 9 years.
Okay. And what is your current occupation, Ms. Bartell?
I'm a drainage engineer.
What does a drainage engineer do?
We do drainage design for the roadways for transportation systems.
And how long have you been a drainage engineer?
For over 9 years, since June of 2004.
Ms. Bartell, where are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed at Trans Systems.
And what does Trans Systems do?
Trans Systems is transportation engineering.
Okay. And is that here in Orlando?
Yes, in Maitland, Florida.
In Maitland. And who was your previous employer?
Reynolds Smith and Hills.
And when did you go to work originally for Reynolds Smith and Hills?
I started working for RSNH in June of 2004.
And when did you leave Reynolds Smith and Hills?
August of 2013.
So very recently.
Correct, about a little over 2 months ago.
Okay. And so that's roughly 9 years.
Correct.
Was Reynolds Smith and Hills your first job out of school?
Yes.
And what did you go to school for?
I went to school for engineering science with a focus in civil.
Civil engineering science.
Sure. Yes, civil or engineering science with a focus in civil engineering.
Okay. And when you worked at Reynolds Smith and Hills, what was your initial title? Job
my-
title.
Transportation engineer probably, and then I moved over to the drainage department and became a drainage engineer.
So you were something engineer at the entire time you worked at Reynolds Smith and Hills?
Sure, or an engineering intern until you get your license, but yes.
Okay. So you have to have a license to be an engineer?
To be a practicing engineer, you need to have your engineering license, your professional engineering license.
And you have yours?
I do.
Now, were you working, when you worked at Reynolds Smith and Hills, did you ever work with a person named Jason Rodriguez?
I did.
And do you see the person you know as Jason Rodriguez in the courtroom
I do.
today? Could you please point to him and describe something he's wearing?
He's wearing a maroon and white striped shirt, I think.
Thank you. May the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
The record will so indicate.
Ms. Bartell, in what capacity did you work with Jason Rodriguez?
It was very limited, my work with him. He was in the roadway department, and I was in the drainage department, so we didn't have much overlap.
Okay. Who else worked in the drainage department at that time?
At that time, Jeffrey Glenn, who was my boss, and at that time, Arturo Zapata, who no longer works for RSNH. I believe that's it at the time. Maybe also Jose Ortiz.
Okay. When transportation group work on? What types of projects?
What type? At the time. At the time.
Back in 2006, 2007. Yes, ma'am.
In 2006 or 2007, I guess they would have had a couple county jobs, like county roadway projects, and probably a couple jobs for the Department of Transportation, and probably a job or two for OOCEA, which is Orlando Orange County Expressway Authority.
Okay. When you worked in your group at Reynolds Smith and Hills, What was the demographic of that group?
Um,
Were they
In my-
younger, older, in your group?
in the drainage group, it was I was the youngest, and my boss and coworkers were both older, but the transportation group was younger. There were quite a few of us, like under 30, when I started in that office. It was a pretty young office.
And who was in the transportation group, that younger group that you were talking about?
Nicole Crawford, now Nicole Jeffers, Alex Paradis, and Justin Barton. We were kind of the young non-project managers, and Jesse Forrest was a project manager, but he was also younger, around 30 when I had started. So there were quite a few of us younger.
Now, when Jason Rodriguez was hired, he was assigned to that transportation group, correct?
Correct.
Did he fit the demographic of the rest of the group?
No. From the limited conversations, we didn't seem to have a lot of mutual interests, and he was older than the transportation group, which was pretty young at the time.
Okay. At some point, you're aware that Mr. Rodriguez was terminated from RSNH, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever see Mr. Rodriguez, Jason Rodriguez, after his termination at RSNH, prior to November 6, 2009?
I did not.
Now, were you working at RSNH on Friday, November 6, 2009, at around 11:30 a.m.?
I was.
And did something happen that morning that got your attention?
Yes, I heard loud noises coming from the front of the office near the reception area.
Now, in 2009, where was your office located in relation to reception?
When you walked into reception, you would make a left down the hallway and then make another left, and my office was on that wall.
Would looking at a diagram of the office from 2009 help illustrate your testimony?
Probably.
Your Honor, may I use Exhibit 2?
You may.
Now, Ms. Bartel, if you look over your left shoulder, there should be a laser pointer right where your right hand is.
Okay.
Okay? I'm going to zoom this out.
Okay.
Take a second to orient yourself if necessary.
Right.
Does that appear to be the RSNH offices in 2009?
Yes.
And where, in what building were those offices located?
In the Gateway Center?
Okay, and that's, do you know the address?
Yes, 1000 Legion Place, Orlando, Florida, 32801.
What floor was it on?
It was on the 8th floor.
So you described how to get to your office. If you could use the pointer to go from reception to where your office is located.
Okay, so here's reception, and then if you would walk back through this walkway, and then continue up, I believe this, wait, no, I'm sorry, Jesse. Yes, this is where my cubicle was.
So you would take a left out of reception, go down the walkway with offices on the left, cubicles on the right, correct?
Offices on the, yes.
And then your office was, or your cubicle was on the outside wall past the rounded table.
Correct.
Or, how far was the rounded table from your cubicle? A few feet, maybe? Or do you know?
20 feet, maybe.
Okay. So, you heard loud bangs.
Yes,
And were you in your cubicle when you heard the loud bangs?
I was.
Was anybody else in your cubicle with you?
Nobody else was in my cubicle.
Now, what had you been doing just prior to returning to your cubicle?
I had been in the small conference room with Farrell Hickson and Jeff Glenn.
Now, you previously said Jeff Glenn was your boss, correct?
Correct.
And at this point, are you working in drainage or are you still transportation?
I'm working in drainage.
Who is Farrell Hickson?
Farrell Hickson is a drainage engineer that works at FDOT.
And can you show us where the small conference room was
Yes.
that you had your meeting in?
Here's the small conference room that we had been meeting in prior.
And that's in the very corner of the office,
Yes.
furthest away from reception.
Yes.
after the meeting, you returned to your cubicle, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, when you first heard the bangs, do you recall how many you heard?
No, I heard several.
More than one.
Yes.
Did you initially know what the sound was?
No.
What did you do after you heard the sound?
I stood up and looked towards the front of the office where it was coming from, and
Okay, so at that point, could you tell where it was coming from?
yes, I could tell the sounds were coming from the front of the office, not the back, and I stood up and looked.
From your cubicle, what could you see, if anything?
From my cubicle, I saw a person running around a corner.
Who
when
is
I
that?
stood
Who is
up.
that person?
I'm not positive. I think it was Keith Brockman, but I'm not certain. They
Was-
were
was
just
it a-
yelling, "Everyone get out."
Was it a male person?
It was a male.
Okay, and can you show us on the diagram where you saw that person running?
He ran around this corner. So if my cubicle's here, I could see them as they ran around this corner and out. This is a back door. I saw them run out the back door.
So ran around the materials room, out the back door to where the bathrooms were located.
Yes.
Okay. What else, if anything, did you see at that point?
At that time, I could see a person in the hallways between where the cubicles are towards the front of the office.
Okay, can you show us where you saw the person? Do I need to
Sure.
move down?
I think a little bit down. Like right around this area is where I saw a person, but I don't wear my glasses when I'm working at my desk, so I didn't have them on, so I couldn't see clearly, so I saw a figure, I guess.
Was the figure moving or stationary?
The figure was moving
Okay, which direction was the figure moving?
towards me.
Did you see any other movement near the front of the office?
Not that I remember.
What could you hear, if anything, at that point?
I still heard loud noises. That was kind of when I put together that they were gunshots once I heard someone say, "Everyone get out."
Okay. So now that you've put it together, what did you do?
I dropped down to the floor in between my wall and my desk, and I hid.
Where did you hide? Can you move up?
Right here in this section.
Could you tell, was your body completely concealed, or do you know?
No, not very well concealed at all. I just dropped down right where I was when I saw what was happening. There are actually bookshelves next to where I was that could possibly cover some of it up, but I wasn't completely hidden.
And this is a cubicle, not an office.
It's a cubicle, yes.
Which way were you facing when you got down?
I was facing the wall, the window.
So after that point, could you see anything going on in the office?
No.
What could you hear once you got on the ground in your office?
I heard more gunshots.
Do you recall how many?
No, several.
Was there, that you remember, any rhyme or reason to them, or were they continuous? Can you describe the flow of the gunshots?
The flow sounded like it sounded like someone was putting one gunshot in each cubicle.
Okay.
So there wasn't a rhythm to it, but they were frequent enough that I thought that that's what was happening.
So could you hear the movement of a person? Whether it's-
Yes, once a person got closer, I could hear the movement of a person.
And what was it that you heard?
When he was outside of
And
just
you're saying he. You didn't know who this was.
when the person was out, I heard someone reload a gun about a cubicle or two away from me.
Okay. Can you describe what it was that you heard?
I heard something fall to the floor, and I heard what sounded like bullets being reinserted into a gun.
Okay. And then what did you hear?
And then I heard footsteps walk past my cubicle.
And that would have been directly behind you on the floor, correct?
Correct.
Did they stop at your cubicle?
They did not.
And which direction were the footsteps moving once they passed your cubicle?
Towards Jeff's office.
And can you show us on the diagram where Jeff's office was?
Jeff's office is right here.
On the corner next to the small conference room.
Yes.
And at that point, did you hear any more gunshots?
I did not. When I heard him near Jeff's office, I heard, sorry, not him, when I heard a person near Jeff's office, I heard someone push against the door to try to get in, but the door didn't give. And then I heard footsteps continue off further away down this hallway.
Did you hear any more gunshots?
I did. I heard more gunshots after that, yes.
At any point, did the gunshots stop? At that, near in time to that point? Let me ask you different. I'm sorry. Did you ever hear what sounded to be a person returning?
I did. Yes.
Okay, what did you hear?
Then I heard footsteps coming back towards Jeff's door, and I again heard someone push up against the door, and then I heard a gunshot and glass break and Farrell scream.
And how did you know it was Farrell?
I just did. Jeff and I had worked together for a long time. I'm very familiar with his voice, and it didn't sound like him. It sounded like Farrell. And I knew that they had both been in his office or in the small conference room beforehand, so I figured they would be in there together.
Okay. After the glass break and the gunshot, what did you hear?
I heard footsteps coming past me from Jeff's office towards the front of the office, like they were leaving, and I did not hear any more gunshots.
And at any point during this entire description, did you turn around and look outside?
I did not.
What was the last thing you remember hearing before you got out of your cubicle?
Before I got out of my cubicle or before I left that spot?
Before you left that spot, I'm sorry.
I heard Natalie Rodriguez, one of my coworkers, walking by on her cell phone. So I turned and looked at her, and then I grabbed my cell phone off my desk and crawled underneath my desk where I was more hidden.
Did you use your cell phone?
I did. I called my mom as soon as I crawled underneath my desk.
And where was the next place that you went?
The next place I went after that.
After you ended up under your desk, right?
Yes.
Where did you go next?
I waited until the police and SWAT came in to get me, and then they escorted me out of the building across the street to another building.
So you never left your cubicle before law enforcement
No.
came and took you out of it?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Briefly, Ms. Bartel,
you had indicated that when you stood up in your cubicle to see what the noise was toward the front, that you didn't have your glasses on?
Correct.
What type of eyesight did you have in 2009?
I'm nearsighted, so I can't see distance. I can only see up close. I don't know the prescription, but...
Okay. And you thought that you had heard a person reload a gun, and you described that because you thought you heard something fall to the ground and then the sound of bullets being reloaded?
Yes.
Have you ever fired a gun or used a gun?
I have fired a gun when I was much younger, more like a shotgun, not a handgun ever. And no, I would say my familiarity with the sound would be from TV and movies, not from personal experience.
So that's a guess or speculation that that's what it was?
Correct.
Okay. And is the flooring in that area carpeted?
It's carpeted.
And you say that you simply heard something fall?
Yes, I could hear footsteps too on the carpet. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any redirect?
Just very briefly, Your Honor.
You may.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness in what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit G
You may.
and shown to counsel? Ms. Bartel, I'm going to hand you some photographs marked as State's Exhibit G. Could you look through them, please, and tell me when you're finished? And what do those photographs represent?
The office,
And specifically, where in the office?
near my cubicle.
And are they fair and accurate depictions of how the office near your cubicle looked on November 6, 2009?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the State seeks to amend State's G as you said.
What says the defense?
No objections.
There will be received evidence. It states numbered.
7.
And may I publish State's G?
You may.
State 7. Ms. Bartel, I'm going to put the photographs up over your left shoulder. Put the photograph up if you can just briefly describe what the photograph represents.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
From the diagram, this was the small conference table that we were talking about. This is the area where my cubicle was. This is Jeff's office, and this is that small conference room that we had spoken about.
Is this a closer view?
Yes. This is the entrance to my cubicle. And then here is Jeff's office and the back conference room.
And finally, G1 of State's 7, this is from further back showing the small conference table, correct?
Yes.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any recross on those issues?
No, Your Honor.
May the witness be excused.
She is by the State, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You may be excused. State may call the next witness.
Your Honor, the State calls Farrell Hickson. 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 Hickson.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name for the record?
It's Farrell Leroy Hickson, Jr. Last name is Hickson.
And Mr. Hickson, in what city do you currently reside?
DeLand,
And where are you currently employed?
Florida Department of Transportation.
What do you do for the Florida Department of Transportation?
I'm a civil engineer.
Do you have a specific type of engineering you do?
I do drainage design. I'm the district drainage design engineer.
And how long have you been with the Florida Department of Transportation?
Almost 21 years.
In the course of your employment, and I'm going to use the word FDOT, okay? In the course of your employment with FDOT, did you come to know a company named RS&H,
Yes.
Reynolds, Smith, and Hills?
Yes.
Did you ever, in your employment with FDOT, work with RS&H?
Yes.
When did you start working with them, if you recall?
We have a district-wide drainage design contract with them, and so that's probably the primary time. I've probably worked with them before in the past on some various projects.
And when did that contract kick in?
They're in their second round, so I'm going to say 7 years ago-ish.
Okay. Prior to 2009?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Hickson, I'd like to direct your attention to Friday, November 6th of 2009, start around 11 o'clock. Do you remember that morning?
Yes.
And where were you that morning?
I came in to have a meeting with Liz Bartel and Jeff Glenn, and we concluded the meeting in the conference room in the corner. And
Now,
then
you said you came in, where were their offices located?
Their offices were on the 8th floor
Of what building?
of Gateway Center, 1000 Legion Place.
Had you ever been there
No, never been there before.
prior to that day?
No.
So you go in to reception, were you greeted by the receptionist?
No, I don't think so. No, I came in to the lobby, and I didn't know what floor they were on. I didn't do my homework before I got there. And I looked around for a sign for what floor they were on. I didn't see anything. There's nobody at the front desk. And I remember calling up to Jeff's office, and he didn't answer. And I finally got a hold of Liz, and then she told me what floor to come on. I think she met me maybe at the front.
Did you take the elevators?
Yes.
So Miss Bartel comes and gets you, and where did she escort you to?
We went back to the back conference room in the back corner there.
Do you recall the layout of that office?
Mostly.
Specifically, the back conference room, was it in the very back of the office from where you started?
I think I came in and then went down around to the left, and it was in that corner.
In the corner of the building?
Yeah, it was in the corner. It was a corner.
Anything unusual happened during the meeting?
Nothing during that meeting, no.
Do you know approximately what time the meeting adjourned, or how long the meeting lasted?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
Maybe a half hour.
After the meeting broke up, where did you go?
Liz went back to her office to do some things that we talked about in the meeting, and then I went with Jeff to his office. We were on his computer.
Do you recall where Mr. Glenn's office was in relation to the small conference room?
It was right next to the conference room.
Do you recall, does Mr. Glenn's office have a solid wall, or does it have a window?
He has, it's a window on the back wall, a door with a window on the front wall, solid walls on the side.
Okay. Now, what were you working on with Mr. Glenn in his office?
I was there for a design project, State Road 200, and we had some permitting issues we were trying to work through. So we were on the computer. I don't even remember what it was exactly we were working on the computer, but we were doing something.
At some point while you were in Mr. Glenn's office, did you realize that there was a problem?
Yes.
And what was it that drew your attention to this issue?
We heard a lot of loud popping sounds.
Do you remember how many sounds you heard at first?
There was a lot. I think I estimated about 20 to 30.
Do you recall, did you know what the sounds were when you first heard them?
At first, I had an inkling of what they might have been, but we didn't want to believe it.
Now, you're saying we, because were you,
Jeff and I, yeah,
were you
Jeff
looking
and I.
back and forth at Mr. Glenn?
Yeah, Jeff and I were both, it caught both of our attention, yes.
Okay. Were you standing or sitting at that point?
We were standing at that point when we heard the noise.
Okay, you stood up when you heard the noise.
Yeah, he was at his computer, I was standing behind him, and then we heard the noise, and we got up and we walked towards the door of the office.
What did you see when you got to the door of the office?
What I saw was there was a young lady in her office, kind of prairie dogging, looking over the wall, and then she looked at me with this kind of quizzical smile.
Where was her office in relation to Mr.
Directly
Glenn's?
outside his office, there was a cube there.
Okay. And so she looks at you, and then what happens?
I saw the smile, and I'm thinking, okay, this is a joke. And, that was it. And then immediately after that, a male and a female came running around the corner of her cubicle. I mean, they were running.
So
And then we knew what it was.
when they ran around the cubicle, were the shots still going off?
Yes.
What did you do after you saw them run?
We ducked back into Jeff's office, and Jeff shut the door. He got down on all fours behind the door, and there was nowhere else to go. His layout of his office is kind of a C-shaped on the desks, and I got kind of down in the middle of that C on the floor.
Okay.
Mr. Hickson, I'm handing you with the marker States Composite H. It's a series of photographs. Please look at all of them. Tell me when you're finished. Okay, and what are those photographs of?
That's Jeff's office in the hallway outside.
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of the office as you saw it on the morning of November 6, 2009?
Yes.
And at this time, State seeks to admit States H as States 8, I believe.
What says the defense?
No objection.
We received an evidence that states numbered
8.
Under permission to publish States 8?
and they published.
Mr. Nixon, you were describing the area that you hid within the office, correct?
Correct.
Show me your photograph. Thank you, Your Honor. Madam Clerk. Now, you can look over your left shoulder, Mr. Nixon, excuse me. Now, what does that photograph depict?
That is,
There's a laser pointer in front of you as well.
Okay. This is Jeff Glenn's office. This is the C-shaped desk. I was down in there. And this is the conference room in the corner.
Okay, so you were back behind and near the window.
Yes. Back in there.
And how were you positioned?
Just as low as I could get.
Was your chest on the ground?
Not at the time. Not on that time. No, I was more. I guess I was facing kind of towards the window, so I could see.
Towards the window, facing out the office.
Yeah, probably line of sight was kind of from under that desk up, out.
Okay. So you get on the floor underneath the desk, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Glenn is behind the door.
He's right behind the door here.
Could you see anything out the window once you got in that position, the window leading to the office?
I could, yes. I could see out through the window.
What happened next?
Somebody came to the door and tried to open the door.
Now, how did you know someone was at the door? Could you see them or did you hear it?
The door opened.
Okay.
So the door opened about an inch or two, and Jeff was on all fours. His head was on this side of the door, and his feet were on this side, and he was pushed up against the door. So when the door opened, it got open a couple of inches, and then he pushed it back shut, just as quick as it opened.
Now, at that point, had the person or any person trying to open that door walked in front of the window?
No, not at that point.
Okay. So the door goes back closed. What did you observe after that?
Immediately after the door shut, the individual walked right by the window and then stopped in the threshold here and looked in this conference room.
Now, could you see the individual's face?
Briefly in profile.
And could you see the clothing?
Yes.
What clothing was the person wearing?
All I could tell you based on that instance was pants and some kind of a shirt. And I could tell it was dark hair and it was a male.
You're describing, you were using your arms to describe like almost overalls. Is there a certain type of shirt you saw?
I don't recall just from that quick blaze through.
So the person stopped and looked into the small conference room.
Looked in this conference room, yes.
Did you hear any gunfire proceeding at that point?
After or just before?
Well, what did you see after the person stopped?
After that person stopped, they looked in that conference room, and then they turned and went this way down the hall, briskly.
Briskly? Did you still have line of sight to the person as he walked down the hall?
Yes.
And were you able to observe what he was doing?
After walking down the hall, I came and started looking over the desk out the window. And at that point, when you walk briskly, your arms go side to side like this, right? Your arms move. This arm was moving. This arm was carrying a weapon, a gun, straight down, locked, still. This arm was still going, walking very fast down that hallway.
So at this point, you're seeing the person with the gun's back, correct?
I'm seeing the back of the person, and I'm seeing the gun in the right hand, straight down, pointed towards the floor.
Is that the first time you saw the firearm?
Yes.
Can you describe it?
All I can tell you is it was a handgun.
Was the person walking continuously, or was there any change of motion or stopping?
No, after looking in this conference room, it was just brisk all the way down the hallway. And then as soon as I saw the gun, that was enough for me. I got down.
Did you see the same person come back to Mr. Glenn's office?
Yes.
Before that happened, did you hear any gunshots in the interim?
No.
Did you see anything else in the interim before you saw the person come back?
No.
And you and Mr. Glenn are still in his office, correct?
Correct.
What did you see as the person was approaching?
When the person came back, I was actually on my phone, I think, calling 911 when I was doing it. And then I called him out of the corner of my eye coming back, and I was still looking over the top of the desk. He stopped and looked in this office adjacent, then moved over to the conference room and looked here, and walked again across the glass and tried to open the door again.
So, whereas when he walked away, it was a continuous motion on the way back, he was stopping and peering into offices.
Correct. I saw him look in this office and this conference room again.
Could you still see the firearm?
No, I didn't see the firearm.
Okay. How did you know that he tried to open the door?
Because again, I watched him walk right across the glass, and then immediately the door opened a couple inches, and then Jeff Glenn again pushed it back shut with his body.
What happened after it got shut this time?
What's that?
What happened after it got shut this time?
This time, he stepped right here in front of the glass, and then he kind of tried to look to see what was behind that door. He was looking high. And then just as he started to look, he caught me. He caught me out of the corner of his eye back in my little area back here.
What indicated to you that he saw you?
He just looked dead at me.
Did your eyes meet?
Yes.
What happened after you made eye contact with him?
He stepped back. He just anger on his face, and he stepped back, and he extended his hands to fire at me.
Could you tell which part of your body he was pointing at?
Yeah, he was aimed somewhere in here. I was back on my hands like this on the floor at the time.
Okay, so you're sitting up now.
I'm sitting up on my hands when I locked onto him. My legs were on this side, and my body was more on this side. It was kind of skewed, more kind of diagonal.
Let me show you another photograph.
Sure.
Page 3, states 8. Can you show us where you were right before the gunshot?
Yeah, I was, my head was maybe up here, torso in here, but my legs were kind of more skewed over this way. And the way I was sitting on the floor, my legs were flat on the floor.
I'm going to show you one more photograph, okay?
Yes.
Page 2, states 8. Is that where you were?
Yes.
Can you one more time demonstrate for me?
That's my cell phone, I think.
That's your cell phone in the photograph?
Probably, yeah. So I was, again, my body was more upright in here, my legs were over that way.
And you said that he pointed with two hands at your torso.
Correct.
And what happened after he pointed at you?
I pulled my right leg up. I was thinking to myself, get your chest to the floor. That's what I was thinking. And I pulled the right leg up, and I pushed off as quick as I could to try and flip over and get down. And, I mean, a lot of stuff kind of happened in that split-second time, but, then the shot came, and I remember seeing the glass literally falling to the floor all in the same motion. And the leg came up, and it caught the back of my leg, the bullet.
So you were shot in the leg.
It hit me in the leg.
Did you see the gunman after you were hit in the leg?
I did not, no.
Where did you go, or what did you do after you were shot?
I screamed because it hurt. And then I went to reach for the pain, and then again something told me, play dead. So I just slumped down and held my breath and played dead.
Do you know how long you laid there?
I don't. It seemed like forever. I held my breath as long as I could, maybe just a few seconds.
While you were playing dead, did you hear any gunfire?
No, nothing else.
Could you hear anything else?
Nothing else at that time, no, at that moment.
At some point, did you stop playing dead?
Yeah, when I decided I needed to breathe again, I kind of opened one eye, looked around, and opened another eye. Okay, it looks like he's gone. So at that point, I think I probably said something to Jeff Glenn, like, hey, he shot me or something, I'm hit or something like that.
Was Mr. Glenn still in the office with you then?
He was still there. He didn't move from that door, not through the whole thing.
Okay, so then how was it that you got out of the office?
After that, I'm trying to remember what I did. I wanted to get behind that bookcase. I needed some cover because there was nowhere to go. So I crawled over to the bookcase to try to pull it from the wall. It was too heavy. And so I told Jeff, I said, hey, come here and help me pull this bookcase. He's like, I'm not moving. And then I said, Jeff, get over here and help me pull this bookcase out. And he helped me pull out the bookcase. I shimmied behind the bookcase at that point. I pulled off my belt. I confess I watched Rambo the night before, and I put a tourniquet on the leg to try and keep the bleeding down. And then I started calling 911 again is what happened next.
Where were you when law enforcement finally responded?
It was a little while later.
Okay.
After,
let me ask it this way.
Okay.
Where did you end up when they responded? Where were you?
I ended up in a networking room a few rooms over.
Okay. How did you get to the networking room?
While I was sitting behind that bookcase, we heard some voices outside in the hallway. It was a male and a female voice. And then Jeff kind of popped up and said, hey, is he gone? And they said, yeah, we think so. And at that point I said, hey, I've been hit. Is there like a safer place that I can go? And they said, yeah. And so I think it was the IT guy and Jeff both kind of helped me get over to a room with a lock pad on it, which I think was like a networking room. And that's where we remained until the police came.
How did you end up getting out of the building? Did somebody come for you, or?
No, I was on a 911 call, and I told the person on 911, where we were, and that I was not opening the door until 911 told me that those were police outside my door. I was not opening. I didn't care who they were. They could say police all they want until they verified it. So then the police did come, and that did happen, and they took me out.
And you're talking about the keypad door?
The keypad door, correct. I think Jeff went one way out, and then I went. They took me to the reception area, and they sat me down, just a few feet from Otis's body, and I sat there for probably 15 minutes while they were working on clearing the floor.
And eventually, were you transported downstairs?
I was on a roller chair, and they just kind of wheeled me in. I think they were taking. I think it was Keandra was going on a bed, a stretcher thing, and I was like, hey, I want to go now. I don't want to wait. So they just kind of wheeled me into the elevator, and then I went downstairs, and then that's how I ended up getting out of the building.
And you said you were shot in the leg. Can you tell us where the bullet entered your leg?
It entered the back of my right calf. It exited out the front near the shin.
No further questions to this witness.
Cross-examination.
No questions.
Okay.
Will the witness be excused?
He is mistaken.
Thank you, sir. Will the attorneys approach the bench? ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's approximately 12 minutes to the hour 5. We're going to recess for the evening. I'm going to ask that you return back here in the morning around 9:20 so we can get started approximately at 9:30. I'm going to ask that you follow all of my previous instructions. Do not read, watch, or listen to the news accounts of this case, nor discuss this case with anyone else. Any additional instructions on behalf of the state?
No, Your Honor.
Or the defense? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Jury acting.
Okay, may be seated. This court is in recess, 9:30 in this matter, 9 a.m. in other matters. Brian Durfee in the morning at 9.
Yes, sir.
Trail off? Yeah. I have a soft voice. Hold on, I've got the exhibit 2.